Have you ever wondered why certain people seem to drain your energy the moment they enter your life? Even when you've done nothing wrong. You replay conversations in your head, you question your tone, you ask yourself if you were too sensitive, too quiet, too kind. Yet somehow, the same people keep testing you, crossing lines, taking space they were never invited into. It feels personal, but it isn't random. There's a reason they come back, and it has nothing to do with your value. Most people believe toxic behavior is about cruelty or arrogance. It's not, it's about access. Some people sense emotional doors that are slightly open, not because you are weak, but because you're human. You listen, you empathize, you try to understand instead of attack to the wrong person. That looks like an invitation, and over time, something quiet begins to happen. Your energy starts leaking, your confidence dulls, your peace feels harder to protect. You don't lose yourself all at once, you fade slowly. The most painful part isn't the conflict, it's the confusion. Why you again? Why no matter how much you grow, certain personalities keep circling back? Why? Cutting them off feels harder than enduring them. That confusion is exactly what keeps you stuck. Because toxic people don't survive on power, they survive on reaction. They don't need your agreement. They don't need your approval. They only need proof they can still reach you. A sigh, a long message, a defensive explanation, anything that says you still matter enough to affect me. And without realizing it, you start living in response mode, waiting, preparing, bracing, always alert, never fully at peace. But here's the truth most people never hear. We're never meant to fight toxic people. You were never meant to win arguments or prove your side. The real escape isn't confrontation, it's transformation. Because the moment your internal world changes, their behavior does too. Not magically, not emotionally, psychologically. There is a level of calm that feels threatening to manipulative minds. A neutrality they cannot read, a stillness they cannot penetrate. When you stop feeding the dynamic collapses, and that shift doesn't require aggression. It doesn't require cruelty. It doesn't even require distance. At first, it begins quietly, inside your responses, inside your pauses, inside what you no longer feel obligated to explain. Something powerful happens when you stop performing emotional labor. For people who never protected your peace, you don't announce it, you don't argue it, you embody it. Your voice slows, your reactions shrink. Your presence becomes grounded, and suddenly, conversations change, the tension fades, the tests increase at first, then the interest drops. Because toxic behavior can't survive without friction. When there's no emotional surface to scratch, attention moves elsewhere. This isn't about becoming cold, it's about becoming unreachable, not physically, energetically. You begin to notice something unfamiliar. Silence that doesn't feel lonely, distance that feels safe. You start breathing deeper, sleeping better, thinking clearer. The weight you carried for so long lifts, not because anyone apologized, but because you finally stopped carrying what was never yours. You don't need to be louder. You don't need to dominate. You only need to stop leaking yourself into places that never valued you. When your inner world becomes stable, chaos loses its invitation. And once that happens, something incredible occurs. The people who once disturbed your peace begin to disappear. Not with drama, not with closure. They simply fade. Because you are no longer the environment where they can exist. Stay here, stay present in the shift. There is a way to move through the world without being targeted, drained, or pulled into emotional storms that don't belong to you. And once you understand it, you never return to who you were before. Something inside you is already shifting, you can feel it, that quiet awareness that says you're done surviving and ready to take control. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. You realize how often you were taught to be polite instead of protected. How you were praised for patience while your boundaries were ignored. How staying calm became an excuse for staying silent. That silence trained people how to treat you, not intentionally, not consciously, but consistently. And the brain learns consistency fast. Every time you tolerated disrespect, a message was sent. Every time you explained yourself, another signal went out. Every time you stayed available while feeling uncomfortable, the line moved. Not because you allowed abuse, because you were trying to be decent in a world that rewards dominance. But decency without boundaries becomes access. And access is what toxic people hunt. They don't want closeness, they want control. They test reactions like pressure points. They push slightly, then watch carefully if you react. Emotionally, they push again. If you stay calm but keep engaging, they escalate, not to hurt you, to confirm influence. That's the part most people miss. The goal is not pain. The goal is proof. Proof that your mood can be changed, your attention redirected, your peace interrupted. Once that proof exists, the behavior continues, so the shift begins when proof disappears. Now, by arguing harder, not by becoming colder, but by becoming steady when your responses stop fluctuating. Control breaks, no long explanations, no emotional spikes, no visible reward, just clarity, a calm that doesn't ask permission, a presence that doesn't apologize at first. It feels uncomfortable because you were conditioned to fill silence, to smooth tension, to make things easier for others, but ease for them often meant pressure for you. That's why holding your ground feels unnatural at first. Your nervous system expects backlash, your mind anticipates conflict. Yet something surprising happens when you don't fold. The chaos do. ASN explode, it weakens. Toxic behavior relies on immediacy, quick reactions, fast emotions, instant access. When access slows, manipulation loses rhythm. People who once dominated conversations begin losing control of them. Interruptions fade, provocations fall flat, not because you change your personality. Because you change your availability, you begin responding when you choose, not when they demand. You speak when it's necessary, not when you're pressured. You stop carrying conversations that drain you, and slowly your body relaxes, your shoulders drop, your breathing deepens, your thoughts clear. That calm isn't passive, it's threatening, because calm signals independence. And independence terrifies those who survive on influence. They sense it immediately. The energy shifts, their tone adjusts, their interest wavers, some push harder at first. They test old buttons. They provoke familiar reactions. But the buttons are gone. No explosion, no defense, no emotional payout, just space. And space is powerful. Because when someone can't reach your emotions, they lose leverage. This is where most people make the mistake of thinking they must explain the change. You don't announce growth. You don't justify distance. You don't seek validation. You live it. You let your actions rewrite expectations. You show that access to you now requires respect, not spoken, felt. Your life begins to reorganize itself around peace. You choose environments that nourish instead of drain. Conversations that build instead of pull apart. Connections that feel safe instead of sharp. And the more grounded you become, the less visible you are to predators. Because chaos recognizes chaos, but stability confuses it. You stop being the emotional home they return to. You are no longer the place where dysfunction feels comfortable. That's when disappearance happens. Not dramatic, not loud, quiet. Messages slow, interactions fade, presence dissolve. No confrontation required. You didn't reject them. You outgrew the version of yourself that could access. And this is the part that matters most. You don't become unreachable by building walls. You become unreachable by building a life so full, so intentional, so grounded, that anything threatening your peace feels immediately foreign. You no longer chase clarity from people who thrive on confusion. You choose yourself without guilt, because protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's survival upgraded into strength. And once you embody that strength, toxic people don't argue with it. They leave it alone. And now something deeper begins to surface, not outside of you, inside. Because once toxic people lose access, a new challenge appears. You are left alone with your own strength. No noise, no chaos, no distraction, just clarity. And clarity can feel terrifying at first. You realize how much of your energy was spent managing others. How often your thoughts revolved around reactions instead of direction. How rarely you asked yourself what you actually wanted. That awareness hits hard. Because freedom isn't loud, it's quiet. And in that quiet, responsibility returns. You can no longer blame manipulation for stagnation. You can no longer hide behind survival mode. Now the question becomes simple and heavy. What will you build with your peace? This is where most people unconsciously sabotage themselves. They mistake calm for comfort. They relax too early, but peace is not the end point. It's a starting line. Toxic people disappear when they sense you're evolving. But life tests whether the evolution is real. Old habits whisper, old doubts resurface. The urge to over-explain tries to return because your nervous system remembers chaos. Growth feels unfamiliar. Stability feels strange. Silence can feel unsafe when you were trained to expect conflict. But this is where power is forged, not in confrontation, in discipline. Discipline over what you allow near your mind. Discipline over what you respond to. Discipline over who gets your emotional energy. Every boundary you hold rewires your identity. You stop chasing approval. You stop fearing misunderstanding. You stop shrinking to keep others comfortable. And slowly, something remarkable happens. Your presence changes. People speak differently around you. Interactions become shorter. Disrespect loses its courage. Not because you became intimidating, because you became clear. Clarity removes confusion, and confusion is the hiding place of manipulation. When your words align with your actions, there is nothing to exploit. You don't threaten, you don't warn, you simply act in alignment with self-respect. That consistency sends a powerful psychological message. This person cannot be moved, not emotionally, not mentally, not socially, and the mind instinctively avoids what it cannot control. That's why toxic people don't argue with strong boundaries, they retreat from them. Strength doesn't provoke battles, it prevents them. This is also where your self-worth deepens, not the loud kind, not the performative kind, the quiet certainty that says you don't need to be chosen to be valuable. You stop auditioning for connection, you stop proving your intentions, you stop explaining your heart. You understand something profound. People who genuinely care never require you to abandon yourself, and that truth becomes non-negotiable. You begin choosing relationships that feel calm, not intense, safe, not addictive, respectful, not dramatic. Because chaos is not chemistry. Anxiety is not passion. Familiar pain is not love. Your nervous system finally learns peace. And once it does, it rejects everything else. That's when transformation accelerates. Your focus sharpens, your goals gain gravity, your time becomes sacred. You no longer scatter your energy trying to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding you. You invested in growth, in health, in purpose, in building a life so aligned that negativity has nowhere to attach. This is the stage where your silence becomes powerful. You don't overshare. You don't vent impulsively. You don't invite everyone into your inner world, not because you are closed, because discernment has replaced desperation. You've learned that not everyone deserves access to your truth. Privacy becomes protection, and peace becomes your default. The world begins responding differently. Opportunities appear where drama once lived. Confidence replaces caution. Momentum replaces exhaustion. You move with intention instead of reaction. And here's the final shift. You stop trying to make toxic people leave you alone because you no longer exist on the frequency where they can find you. You didn't fight your way out, you rose, you did. Hardened your heart, you strengthened your foundation. And now your energy speaks before you ever say a word, calm, clear, unshakable. This is what happens when you choose yourself consistently. The noise fades, the tests end, the chaos searches elsewhere, and what remains is a life built on respect, direction, and inner authority, not because the world changed, because you did. And now the weight of that change settles in, not heavy solid, because once you step in this version of yourself, there is no pretending anymore. You see manipulation faster. You sense discomfort sooner. You feel the shift before words are spoken. Your intuition sharpens because your mind is no longer crowded, and that awareness creates responsibility. You see and unlearn self-respect. You can't unknow your worth. You can't return to shrinking without feeling it tear at you. That's the cost of growth. You begin noticing how often people rely on your tolerance, how some connections only existed because you accepted less than you deserve, how peace was never missing, it was postponed. This realization doesn't make you angry. It makes you precise. You stop giving energy automatically. You stop responding out of habit. You stop showing up where effort is one-sided. Every choice becomes intentional, and intention changes everything. Your time gains weight. Your attention gains value. Your presence gains authority. When you speak, it's not rushed. When you listen, it's not submissive. When you decide, it's final. You are no longer persuadable by guilt, because guilt was never love, it was conditioning. You were trained to feel responsible for other people's emotions, to absorb tension, to smooth discomfort. But emotional responsibility has limits. You learn that empathy without boundary becomes self-betrayal. So you stop rescuing people from consequences they created. You stop fixing moods you didn't cause. You stop carrying weight that doesn't belong to you. This is not cruelty. This is maturity. And maturity changes how the world interacts with you. People test less, push less, demand less. Not because they fear you, because your standards are visible. Standards are silent rules the mind instantly recognizes. They're felt in your posture, in your pauses, in your refusal to overreact. And once those standards exist, something powerful happens. You attract differently. Drama loses interest. Stability draws closer. Respect finds its way to you. Your life begins to feel lighter, not because problems vanish, but because fewer of them are self-inflicted. You stop negotiating with discomfort if it feels wrong. You step back. If it drains you, you disengage. If it confuses you, you don't chase clarity from chaos. You choose alignment over attachment. And with every aligned choice, your identity strengthens. You are no longer defined by how much you endure. You are defined by what you refuse. This is the turning point most people never reach. They want peace without discomfort, change without resistance, growth without loss. But evolution requires release. Some people cannot come with you, not because they are bad, but because they only knew the version of you that tolerated everything. When you change, the contract expires, and it's okay to grieve that. Letting go doesn't mean the past was fake. It means the future demands more. You begin trusting your silence. You don't fill gaps with explanations. You don't chase closure. You don't beg to be understood. Understanding is optional. Respect is not. And this is where your power becomes undeniable. You walk away sooner. You speak less but mean more. You stop announcing boundaries and start enforcing them. No drama, no speeches, just consistency. Consistency is te, a language the brain believes. When your actions stop contradicting your needs, confidence locks in. Not confidence built on praise, confidence built on integrity. You know who you are because your behavior reflects it. You say no and sleep peacefully. You choose distance without guilt. You protect your calm without apology. That calm becomes your signature. People feel it before they interact with you. It creates space, it commands respect. It filters energy automatically. And soon you realize something extraordinary. You are no longer trying to avoid toxic people. They simply don't find you. Your frequency has changed. Your tolerance has dropped. Your self-worth has stabilized. You don't react to manipulation because you recognize it as beneath your attention. You don't engage with chaos because your life no longer has room for it. You've built something stronger than defense. You've built identity. An identity rooted in clarity, grounded in discipline, protected by self-respect, and from this place, everything moves differently. Your decisions come faster. Your peace lasts longer. Your energy stays yours. You are no longer surviving interactions. You are directing your life. And once that happens, there is no going back, because the strongest boundary you will ever create is the one inside you, the moment you decided you were done abandoning yourself. And now the line is drawn, not in anger, in certainty. Because once you stop abandoning yourself, the world adjusts whether it wants to or not. You begin waking up with less tension in your chest. Your thoughts stop racing before conversations even happen. Your body realizes it. It's no longer under threat. That's when you understand something powerful. Peace is not passive. Peace is earned. It is built every time you choose discomfort over disrespect, every time you pause instead of reacting, every time you walk away instead of proving your point. This is where true authority forms. Not the kind that demands attention, the kind that no longer needs it. You notice how silence becomes your strongest response. Not cold silence, confident silence. The kind that says you don't owe access to anyone who disrupts your balance, and that silence does something remarkable. It forces people to face themselves. Manipulation needs friction, drama needs participation. Control needs engagement. When you remove yourself, their tactics collapse. Inward, some will try harder. They'll provoke nostalgia. They'll remind you of who you used to be, but that version of you no longer exists. You don't explain the growth, you don't justify the distance. You simply refuse to go backward. This is where many people hesitate. They fear being misunderstood. They fear being labeled difficult. They fear losing connection, but here is the truth. Any connection that requires self-betrayal is not connection, it's captivity, and freedom demands courage. Courage to disappoint others so you don't keep disappointing yourself. Courage to choose peace even when chaos feels familiar. Courage to let people misinterpret you rather than misplace yourself. This courage rewires your brain. You stop chasing approval. You stop monitoring reactions. You stop adjusting your truth to fit someone else's comfort. Your nervous system settles into strength. You are no longer hypervigilant, no longer scanning for danger, no longer bracing for emotional impact, because you trust yourself to lead when something feels wrong. That trust changes everything. It sharpens your intuition. It speeds up your decisions. It protects your energy before damage is done. You don't wait for red flags to become disasters. You move early, quietly, decisively, and life becomes cleaner. Less explanation, less noise, less chaos disguised as connection. You begin surrounding yourself with people who don't drain you after conversations. People who don't test boundaries, people who don't confuse intensity with intimacy. Your standards no longer feel heavy, they feel natural. Because standards are not walls, they are filters. They don't keep people out, they reveal who belongs. And as your environment stabilizes, your confidence deepens, not loud confidence, grounded confidence, the kind that doesn't flinch when someone disapproves. You realize something profound. You were never afraid of being alone. You were afraid of choosing yours. When others wouldn't understand. Now you understand this. Loneliness fades when self-respect grows. You don't need constant connection when your inner world is stable. You stop needing validation because your actions align with your values. That alignment creates momentum. You focus longer. You build faster. You move with intention. Your life begins responding to direction instead of reaction. And here's the moment everything locks into place. You no longer hope toxic. People leave you alone. You expect it. Because your energy no longer negotiates your presence. Communicates boundaries before words ever appear. You don't argue. You don't threaten. You don't chase. You stand. And standing still in your truth is more powerful than any confrontation. People sense it. They sense the lack of emotional availability, the absence of chaos, the calm that cannot be shaken. That calm tells the truth instantly. There's nothing to take here. So, they move on, quietly, naturally, inevitably. You didn't push them away. You became someone they couldn't access. This is the highest form of protection, not isolation, not aggression. Identity. When you know who you are, confusion disappears. When your values are clear, manipulation fails. When your peace is prioritized, toxicity starves. You stop living in defense mode. You live in alignment. And alignment is magnetic. It attracts opportunity. It attracts clarity. It attracts people who meet you at your level instead of pulling you down at bait. Heirs. This is the reward few people reach, a life where your energy is yours, your time is sacred, your presence is intentional. You don't fight for peace anymore, you embody it. And anything that cannot exist in peace quietly removes itself. That is your power now, not loud, not forceful, unshakable. And now the truth becomes impossible to ignore. This version of you is permanent, not a mood. Not a phase, not something that fades when pressure rises. It's who you are now. You no longer flinch when energy feels wrong. You no longer second-guess your instincts. You no longer stay where your spirit tightens, because your body has learned the cost of ignoring itself. You remember the exhaustion, the overthinking at night, the heaviness that followed certain interactions. You remember shrinking, and you will not return to that place. This is where resolve hardens. You stop negotiating with discomfort. You stop tolerating confusion disguised as connection. You stop giving people unlimited chances to prove they don't respect you. Time becomes precious. You understand that every moment spent explaining yourself to the wrong people steals focus from the life you're meant to build. And that realization changes your urgency. You act faster. You decide quicker. You detach sooner. Not out of fear, out of clarity. You finally understand that protecting your peace is not avoidance. It is leadership over your own life. Because no one else will guard your boundaries for you. No one else will lie. Ellen noticed the subtle disrespect. No one else will feel the energy drain before it becomes visible. Only you, and that awareness is power. You begin choosing environments intentionally. You limit access to your emotions. You reserve your vulnerability for those who earn it. Not everyone deserves the full version of you. That is not arrogance. That is wisdom. You learn that being open without discernment invites harm. Being kind without standards invites exploitation. So you evolve. You become warm, not accessible, strong, not aggressive, present, not available. This balance changes everything. Your words carry weight because you don't overuse them. Your absence speaks because you don't threaten it. Your presence is felt because it's not guaranteed. You are no longer predictable, not emotionally, not psychologically, and unpredictability disrupts manipulation completely. Those who once relied on your reactions feel unsettled. They can't read you. They can't trigger you. Their power evaporates because control only works when patterns remain the same. You've changed the pattern. You stop explaining why something hurt. You stop justifying why something matters to you. You stop arguing your humanity. Your needs are valid. Without debate, you move in silence now, not secrecy, strength. You don't announce growth because growth doesn't need witnesses. It shows in your posture, in your tone, in your refusal to chase. You don't convince people to respect you. You withdraw from those who don't, and that withdrawal is not loss, it's alignment. Life becomes simpler, not easier, cleaner, fewer conversations, deeper connections, less noise. You realize peace is not empty, it's spacious. It gives your thoughts room to breathe, your goals room to expand, your confidence room to mature. You stop living defensively, you live deliberately, your choices reflect your values. Your schedule reflects your priorities, your relationships reflect your standards. Nothing is accidental anymore. And this intention creates momentum. You wake up knowing where your energy belongs. You move through the day without bracing for impact. You rest without guilt. Because your life finally fits you. This is the moment everything shifts internally. You stop fearing confrontation because you no longer seek it. You stop fearing abandonment because you no longer abandon yourself. You stop fearing judgment because your self-trust outweighs opinion. That is freedom, not escape. Ownership. You own your reactions. You own your silence. You own your departure. And ownership is intimidating to those who thrive on influence. They sense it instantly. There's no opening, no emotional crack, no invitation. So they drift away, not with conflict, not with closure, with distance. And distance becomes your ally. It preserves your focus, protects your energy, amplifies your direction. You no longer wonder why toxic people keep appearing. They don't. You've changed the conditions. Your life now requires accountability. Your presence demands respect. Your peace allows no exceptions. This is not isolation. This is elevation. You didn't become unreachable by pushing the world away. You became unreachable by rising above what once pulled you down. And from here forward, every decision becomes simpler. If it costs your peace, it's too expensive. If it drains your clarity, it's not worth it. If it requires self-betrayal, it ends. No hesitation, no apology. You have learned the ultimate truth. You don't make toxic people leave you alone by fighting them. You make them leave by becoming someone who no longer tolerates being touched by chaos. And once that line is drawn inside you, it cannot be crossed again, because you are no longer surviving life. You are directing it. And now everything narrows into focus, not pressure. Purpose, because once you reach this point, hesitation becomes the real enemy. You can feel it when old patterns try to pull you back. The urge to explain, the reflex to please, the instinct to soften your truth. That is the final test. Not whether others will change, whether you will stay firm. This is where strength becomes visible, not in confrontation, in consistency. You show up the same way every time, calm, clear, unavailable for nonsense. You stop adjusting your tone to be accepted. You stop shrinking your needs to avoid discomfort. You stop offering excess where respect is missing. That's when life responds differently, because clarity is magnetic. People know where they stand with you. There's no guessing, no emotional loopholes. Your boundaries don't shout, they exist, and existence is enough. You begin to recognize something powerful. Toxic people rely on confusion more than control. When your behavior is predictable in itself, respect, manipulation fails. They can't twist your words, they can't provoke reactions, they can't guilt you into compliance. There's nothing to grab onto. You are steady, steadiness unsettled. Those who feed on emotional imbalance, they sense the shift long before you say anything. Your energy doesn't rise to meet chaos anymore. It stays grounded. That grounding is authority. You move slower, but with direction. You speak less, but with precision. You decide once. Don't revisit it. Your life stops being reactive. That alone changes everything. You begin acting from intention rather than emotion, from values rather than fear, from choice rather than habit. And this creates momentum that cannot be faked. You don't chase peace, you maintain it. You don't seek validation, you verify alignment. You don't argue boundaries, you enforce distance. Each decision strengthens your identity. And identity is the ultimate defense, because when you know who you are, you stop negotiating your worth. You stop tolerating subtle disrespect. You stop laughing things off that hurt. You stop excusing patterns that drain you. Your tolerance reset, not lower, accurate. You no longer confuse kindness with availability or loyalty with endurance. You learn that staying too long is not love. It's fear disguised as commitment, so you choose differently. You walk away earlier. You pause before responding. You observe more than you react. Observation gives power. You see who respects your boundaries without complaint. You see who resents them. That tells you everything. People who belong will adjust. People who benefited from your silence will resist. Resistance is clarity. You don't argue with it. You accept it, and acceptance frees you. Your emotional load lightens. Your mind quiets. Your energy returns. You feel stronger not because you hardened, but because you stop leaking yourself. That strength compounds. Your confidence no longer depends on outcomes. It comes from knowing you will protect yourself regardless of what happens. That's real security. You trust your decisions because they're rooted in self-respect. You no longer fear being disliked. You fear losing alignment. And alignment becomes your compass. If something disrupts your peace, it's not for you. If someone challenges your boundaries, they don't get closer. If a situation costs your clarity, you step away. No drama, just direction. This is the life most people never reach because it requires discipline over desire. Desire to be liked. Desire to be chosen. Desire to be understood. You release those desires, and in their place something stronger grows. Self-trust. You trust yourself to leave. You trust yourself to wait. You saying yourself to say no without explanation. That trust stabilizes your entire nervous system. You are no longer in fight or flight. You are grounded. From this place, your presence changes rooms. Not because you demand attention, because you don't seek it. Calm becomes your signature. Clarity becomes your shield. People treat you differently because you treat yourself differently. And that is the final truth. The world never changed. You did. You stopped bleeding energy into places that never healed you. You stopped proving yourself to people who never valued you. You stopped surviving and started choosing. This is not confidence borrowed from motivation. This is identity built from discipline. You know your limits. You honor them. You enforce them. And because of that, chaos cannot stay near you. Not for long. Your life now moves with intention, not interference. Your peace is not fragile, it is fortified, and from here forward, everything aligns around one unshakable rule. Anything that threatens your calm loses access, not with anger, not with force, with certainty, because when you choose yourself consistently, the noise fades, the chaos retreats, and the world adjusts. That is the moment you stop being targeted, not because you hid, because you rose. And now the transformation demands one final thing from you: commitment, not excitement, not motivation, commitment. Because insight without action fades fast. You already know what drains you. You already feel when something G is wrong. You already sense the moment your peace is threatened. What matters now is what you do in that moment. This is where lives diverge. Most people feel the warning and ignore it. They rationalize, they minimize, they hope it will improve. You don't do that anymore. You act at the first signal, not emotionally, decisively. You stop waiting for proof that someone doesn't respect you. Disrespect whispers before it screams. You stop needing closure. Closure is clarity you already received. You stop hoping people will change when they benefit from staying the same. Hope kept you stuck. Standards set you free. This is where your power becomes practical. You don't announce exits. You don't threaten distance. You don't argue with patterns. You respond with movement, less access, less availability, less explanation. That quiet withdrawal speaks louder than confrontation ever could, because attention is currency. Where you place it decides what grows. When you stop investing energy in chaos, chaos starves. You begin protecting your mornings, your focus, your mental space. You guard what enters your day because you finally understand something critical. Your mind is the foundation of your life. What you allow in determines what you build. So you choose carefully. You don't let disrespect rent space in your thoughts. You don't replay conversations that don't serve growth. You don't give emotional airtime to people who don't contribute peace. Your attention becomes disciplined. ND discipline creates freedom. You notice how strong you feel when you stop reacting instantly. How powerful silence becomes when it's chosen, not forced. How confidence grows when your actions align with your values. You begin trusting your internal authority. You don't need reassurance. You don't need permission. You don't need agreement. You know what feels right. That knowing becomes your anchor. When pressure rises, you return to it. When guilt appears, you check alignment. When doubt creeps in, you look at your peace. If your peace improved, the decision was correct. This is the metric now. Not opinions, not approval. Peace. You start measuring relationships by how you feel after them. Energized or exhausted. Clear or confused, calm or tense. Your body never lies. So you listen. And the more you listen, the stronger you become. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop arguing with those who benefit from your silence. You stop chasing harmony at the cost of self-respect. You choose depth over noise, stability over intensity, growth over familiarity. This choice reshapes your identity. You are no longer reactive, you are responsive. There's a pause now, between stimulus and action. In that pause lies power. You breathe, you assess, you choose. That pause is where toxic patterns die. Because manipulation needs immediacy. When you slow down, you take control. Your presence becomes grounded. You don't rush into conversations, you do. And overcommit. You don't fill space just to be liked. You exist fully without proving anything, and people feel it. They sense the shift in your energy, the certainty in your tone, the absence of desperation. You no longer lean forward emotionally. You stand centered. That center becomes unmovable. Life begins arranging itself around that stability. You attract respect without demanding it. You experience peace without chasing it. You create distance without conflict. This is mastery, not over others, over yourself. You understand now that freedom isn't about removing toxic people from your life. It's about removing the version of you that tolerated them. Once that version disappears, everything else follows. The arguments stop. The manipulation fades. The tension dissolves. Not because people changed, because the doorway closed and you did slam it. You simply walk through it and never look back. This is what happens when boundaries become identity. You don't enforce them. You embody them. You live in a way that makes disrespect incompatible. Your life becomes quieter, stronger, focused. You have space to think, time to build, energy to grow, and with that growth comes something priceless. Peace that doesn't depend on anyone else. No approval required. No validation needed. No explanation necessary. You are steady. You are clear. You are no longer available for chaos. And because of that, chaos no longer finds you. This is not avoidance. This is evolution. You didn't hide from the world. You rose above what once controlled you, and from this place, there is no going back, only forward, calm, focused, unshakable. Because the moment you chose yourself fully, everything that thrived on your self-doubt lost its power. and that power will never return. And now the responsibility is fully yours, not heavy, sacred, because awareness has turned into choice, and choice shapes destiny. You can feel it when old habits try to resurface. Urge to reply too fast, the instinct to soften your boundaries, the reflex to doubt yourself, that the moment everything matters, not tomorrow, not later, now, because growth isn't proven in calm moments. It's proven when pressure returns. You don't wait for confidence anymore. You move with discipline. Discipline to pause, discipline to observe, discipline to protect what you have built. Your peace didn't come easily. It cost you comfort, it cost you people, it cost you versions of yourself that no longer fit. You honor that cost. You don't give access to anyone who threatens the life you're creating. This is where your power becomes visible. You stop responding to emotional bait. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop justifying distance. You understand something deeply now. Explanations invite negotiation. Silence ends it, not cold silence. Grounded silence. The kind that says your energy is not public property. You become selective with your attention, because attention is life. What you feed grows, what you ignore fades. So you starve negativity, you starve manipulation, you starve chaos of the reaction it creates. And when chaos isn't fed, it dies. You notice the shift immediately. Your mind feels lighter. Your body relaxes. Your days stop revolving around emotional recovery. You are no longer healing from people. You are building clarity, building confidence, building a future that doesn't require constant self-defense. This is where your vision expands. You stop thinking about surviving interactions and start thinking about direction, where you are going, who you're becoming, what you refuse to sacrifice again. Your standards evolve, not from pride, from experience. You've seen what happens when you tolerate too much. You've lived the exhaustion of endless understanding. Now you choose reciprocity, effort that meets effort, respect that doesn't need reminders, energy that doesn't drain you afterward. Anything less feels wrong instantly, and that instinct is your greatest weapon. You no longer override it, you trust it. Because every time you ignored it before, you paid the price. Now you listen. That listen sharpens your presence. You walk into rooms differently. You speak without rushing. You leave without guilt. Your confidence is not loud. It's stable. People sense it. They don't test you the same way. They don't push as hard. They don't assume unlimited access. Your energy communicates boundaries before words appear. This is psychological authority, not dominance. Alignment. You are aligned with your values, and alignment creates certainty. Certainty is intimidating to dysfunction, because manipulation survives in doubt. When doubt disappears, control disappears with it. You are no longer trying to be understood by everyone. You are committed to being true to yourself. That commitment becomes non-negotiable. You stop reopening doors you closed for your mental health. You stop romanticizing the past. You stop mistaking familiarity for safety. You move forward with intention. Forward means growth. Growth means discomfort. But discomfort with purpose is strength. You choose growth anyway, because staying the same hurts more. You felt that pain, the anxiety, the resentment, the slow erosion of self-respect. You refuse to relive it. So when something feels off, you don't analyze it endlessly. You step back. When someone disrespects your boundaries, you don't argue, you adjust access. When energy feels heavy, you leave. Not dramatically, decisively. That decisiveness rewires your life. You waste less time. You recover faster. You trust deeper. Your emotional world stabilizes, and stability unlocks momentum. You focus longer. You create more. You build without interruption. Your mind becomes a place of strategy, not survival. That is freedom, not the absence of problems. The presence of self-trust. You trust yourself to protect your peace. You trust yourself to walk away. You trust yourself to choose again. And with that trust, fear loses its grip. You are no longer afraid of losing people. You are afraid of losing yourself. That shift changes everything, because once you value your inner world above approval, manipulation has nowhere to land. You don't chase respect. You require it through action. You don't toxicity. You outgrow it. And as you continue forward, one truth remains unshakable. The version of you that tolerated chaos no longer exists. You are not accessible to confusion. You are not available for disrespect. You are not open to emotional debt. Your life is no longer reactive. It is intentional. Every boundary you keep strengthens you. Every time you choose peace, you rise. Every moment you protect your energy, your future expands. This is not distance. This is direction. You are not shutting people out. You are choosing yourself in and from this place. The world responds differently. Not because you demand it, because you finally become someone who knows exactly who they are. And nothing is more powerful than that. And now the momentum is undeniable. You are no longer becoming this person, you are this person. The shift has already happened. You feel it in how quickly you recognize disrespect, in how little tolerance you have for confusion, in how calm you remain when others expect reaction. That calm is not weakness, it is mastery, because reaction hands away power, and you no longer give yours freely. You understand something most people never learn. Energy moves first, words follow later. So you manage your energy with precision. You don't rush into conversations. You don't respond from emotion. You don't allow urgency created by others to become your emergency. You slow the moment down. And in slowing it down, you take control. This is where your presence becomes commanding, not loud, not aggressive, grounded. People feel it when you enter a room, not because you demand attention, but because you are not seeking it. Your focus is inward now. You are guided by alignment, not approval. That alignment becomes your compass. If something pulls you off center, you pause. If something costs your peace, you step away. If someone tests your boundaries, you reinforce them through action. No speeches, no emotional explanation, just consistency. Consistency creates certainty, and certainty removes manipulation. Because manipulation needs doubt to survive. When you are certain of who you are, there is nothing to twist. You don't argue with disrespect. You don't defend your boundaries. You don't convince people of your worth. You let consequences speak. Distance becomes the message. And distance is powerful. It teaches without confrontation. It protects without aggression. It ends cycles without conflict. This is where your life becomes quieter, not empty. Intentional. Fewer people, stronger connections, less noise in your mind. You stop feeling silent. With explanation, silence no longer scares you. It strengthens you because silence gives you space to hear yourself. And when you listen closely, you hear truth clearly. You hear when something feels forced. You hear when something feels draining. You hear when something no longer belongs. That clarity saves you years of emotional labor, years of trying to be understood, years of managing other people's dysfunction. You stop carrying weight that was never yours. Your shoulder relax. Your breathing deepens. Your thoughts become sharper. This is what peace does. It doesn't make you passive. It makes you precise. You choose your battles by choosing none at all. You stop proving, you stop persuading, you stop participating in chaos disguised as communication. Your energy becomes selective, and selected energy creates elevation. You begin attracting people who don't need to dominate you to feel secure, people who communicate clearly, people who respect limits without resentment. Because healthy people are comfortable with boundaries. Only those who benefited from your lack of them feel threatened. That realization and removes guilt completely. You no longer feel bad for protecting yourself. You understand. Now, if someone gets angry at your boundaries, they were using your lack of them. That truth settles deep. And once it does, your decisions become easier. You don't hesitate. You don't overthink. You don't revisit choices that brought you peace. You move forward even when it's lonely at first. Because loneliness with self-respect is temporary. Misery with constant acts is permanent. You choose temporary discomfort over lifelong exhaustion. That choice rewires your future. Your standards rise naturally. Your self-talk improves. Your confidence stabilizes. Not because everything is perfect. Because you trust yourself. You trust that you will leave when something harms you. You trust that you will speak when silence costs too much. You trust that you will protect your inner world. That trust is unbreakable. No manipulation can penetrate it. No guilt can override it. No pressure can shake it. You stop fearing loss. Because you understand something profound. Anything that leaves your life because you set boundaries was never meant to stay. What remains is real. What remains is safe. What remains supports your growth instead of draining it. This is the reward for choosing yourself repeatedly. Not applause, not validation. Freedom. Freedom from emotional chaos. Freedom from constant explanation. Freedom from living on edge. You wake up grounded. You move through the day focused. You sleep W. Without replaying conversations, your nervous system finally rests, and from that rest, your power multiplies. You think clearer. You act faster. You create more. Your life becomes intentional rather than reactive. You no longer wait for toxic people to leave you alone. They already have, because your energy does not invite them. You are no longer accessible to confusion, no longer available for disrespect, no longer open to emotional turbulence, not because you closed your heart, because you strengthened it. You learned that protecting your peace is not selfish. It is necessary to grow, necessary to lead your life, necessary to become who you are always meant to be. This is not distance from others. This is closeness to yourself. And once you reach this place, there is no turning back. Only clarity, only direction, only forward motion. You are not surviving anymore. You are choosing. And every choice you make from here shapes a life built on calm, strength, and unshakable self-respect. That is how the noise ends. That is how the chaos fades. That is how toxic people lose access forever, not because you fought them, because you finally chose you, and now the final truth settles in your chest, not softly, firmly. You are no longer searching for protection. You have become it. There is a difference. Protection borrowed can be taken away. Protection built inside cannot. You feel it when pressure rises. Your heart no longer races. Your thoughts no longer scatter. You remain steady. That steadiness is your new power, because the world tests what you claim to be, and you are no longer claiming strength. You are living it. You don't collapse under manipulation. You don't bend under guilt. You don't flinch under emotional noise. You pause. And in that pause, you win. You've learned something rare. Urgency is often a trap. Pressure is often manipulation. Confusion is often intentional. So you slow everything down. You breathe. You observe. You decide. Nothing controls you unless you allow speed to replace awareness. And awareness now defines you. You notice tone before words, patterns before apologies, energy before promises. You no longer need proof repeated 10 times. Once is enough. That clarity makes you dangerous to dysfunction, because dysfunction survives on denial. You no longer deny what you feel. You trust it. That trust turns fear into instinct. When something feels off, you don't argue with yourself anymore. You don't explain it away. You don't gaslight your own intuition. You respect it. Self-respect is quiet but absolute. It doesn't scream. It doesn't threaten. It simply moves away. And that movement is final. You've learned that boundaries don't require emotion. They require follow-through. Anyone can say no if you can mean it. You mean it now, not because you're angry, because you're done sacrificing peace for proximity. Your presence is no longer free. It is earned through consistency, honesty, and respect. This standard changes everything. People approach you differently. Conversations feel lighter. Interaction become cleaner. Not because others improved, because access changed. You removed the chaos that once welcomed confusion, and without chaos, toxic behavior starves. You no longer absorb emotion storms. You no longer become the safe place for dysfunction. You no longer carry unresolved pain that isn't yours. You put it down. And when you put it down, your life lifts. You begin moving with confidence that doesn't need reassurance. You don't ask if you're doing the right thing. You feel it. Your body relaxes when the decision aligns. That's how you know peace is your compass. Now, not excitement, not intensity, not attachment. Peace. If something steals it, the cost is too high. If someone threatens it, access closes. If a situation drains it, you step back. No explanations required. You stop proving your maturity to immature minds. You stop debating with people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop offering clarity where confusion is chosen. Your energy becomes sacred. And sacred things are protected. You don't chase growth anymore. You maintain it. You build routines that strengthen you, habits that ground you, goals that pull you forward. Your life fills with intention. And when life is full, toxicity has nowhere to sit. This is what freedom actually looks like. Not isolation, sovereignty. You govern your emotional world. You decide who enters. You decide what stays. You decide when all meeting ends. That control is calm, not cruel. You don't punish people. You prioritize yourself. That distinction matters because punishment seeks reaction. Prioritization seeks peace. And peace is the ultimate form of strength. You feel the difference now. You no longer rehearse conversations. You no longer dread encounters. You no longer brace for impact. Your nervous system is safe. Safety unlocks clarity. Clarity unlocks courage. Courage unlocks direction. And direction creates destiny. You move forward without dragging the past behind you. You don't need closure from people who never gave clarity. You gave it to yourself. You closed the loop. You reclaimed your energy. You chose discipline over drama, growth over familiarity, truth over comfort. That choice separated you, not above others, beyond old versions of yourself. Version that tolerated too much, the version that explained too often, the version that stayed too long. That version is gone. In its place stands someone unshakable, someone who knows that love does not require self-erasure, that kindness does not demand suffering, that empathy does not mean endurance. You are allowed to leave what harms you. You are allowed to outgrow people. You are allowed to protect your life. That permission was always yours. You just finally claimed it. And now, the result is undeniable. Your world is quieter. Your mind is clear. Your energy is yours again. Not because everyone became kind, because you became sovereign. You no longer wonder why toxic people fade away. They cannot survive where accountability lives. They cannot breathe where clarity stands. They cannot reach someone who does not react. You didn't block them. You didn't confront them. You simply stopped being available to chaos. That is the highest level of power. Silent, stable, unbreakable. You are not hiding. You are standing, and from this place forward. Your life is not shaped by who drains you. It is shaped by who you choose to be. Strong, scared, unreachable by anything that does not honor your peace. This is not the end. This is the moment everything finally begins. And now the silence around you feels different, not empty, earned. It's the silence that comes after storms stop reaching you. You notice it in your mornings, your thoughts don't. T-race, your chest doesn't tighten before the day begins. You are no longer preparing for emotional impact. That alone changes everything. Because when survival mode ends, vision begins. You stop thinking about what you're escaping from. You start thinking about what you're building toward. Your energy finally has direction. And direction is dangerous to anything that once controlled. You don't wake up reacting anymore. You wake up deciding what deserves your time, what deserves your effort, what deserves your presence. Everything else becomes background noise. You understand now that attention is the most valuable currency you possess, and you guard it fiercely. Not with fear, with intention. You don't give emotional access to people who only show up when they want something. You don't open your inner world to those who disrespect your limits. You don't confuse familiarity with loyalty. You've learned the difference. Loyalty protects your peace. Familiarity often drains it. That realization sharpens your judgment. You stop romanticizing struggle. You stop excusing inconsistency. You stop hoping potential will replace behavior. You choose reality. Reality is calm. Reality is honest. Reality doesn't require you to suffer to prove your worth. And once you choose reality, manipulation loses its grip. Because manipulation depends on fantasy. The fantasy that things will change. The fantasy that endurance equals love. You release that illusion. And when illusions fall, clarity stands tall. You see people clearly now. Not through anger, through acceptance. You accept who they are instead of who you wish they'd be. That acceptance frees you from expectation. And expectation was the chain. You no longer wait for apologies. You no longer seek understanding from those unwilling to listen. You no longer hold space for patterns that repeat without effort to improve. You simply move on, not bitter, resolved. You realize something powerful. You don't need closure. When your boundaries close the door, you don't need validation when your life feels lighter. You don't need revenge when peace is already won. That peace becomes your baseline. You protect it daily, through discipline, through routine, through choosing distance when something feels off. You stop forcing alignment where none exists. You allow people to be who they are, and you decide how close they get. That decision is yours alone, and ownership changes your posture in the world. You walk taller, you speak slower, you listen without absorbing. You no longer internalize chaos, you observe it. And observation creates separation. Separation creates safety. Safety creates strength. You start attracting different experiences. Opportunities feel calmer. Relationships feel mutual. Conversations don't feel like battles. Because your energy no longer invites warfare. It invites clarity. You begin to see how much time you wasted explaining yourself, trying to be understood by people who benefited from misunderstanding. You forgive yourself for that. You were surviving. Now you are leading your life. Leadership doesn't require followers. It requires self-command. You command your reactions. You command your time. You command your emotional investment. That command is quiet but absolute. You no longer overextend. You no longer chase responses. You no longer wait for people to choose you. You choose yourself first. And that decision ripples outward. People feel the difference. Immediately, they sense that you are no longer available for emotional games. There is no entry point. No guilt hook. No urgency trap. No confusion to exploit. Your clarity shuts every door manipulation once used. This is why toxic people disappear without confrontation. They aren't rejected. They are rendered irrelevant. Your life no longer revolves around reaction. It revolves around intention. And intention builds momentum. You focus deeper. You dream bigger. You move forward without dragging emotional debris behind you. Your future begins to open, not because circumstance changed, because capacity did. You now have space to grow, space to think, space to plan, space to become. You stop asking how to protect yourself from toxic people. You understand now. Protection is not avoidance. Protection is alignment. When your life is aligned with your values, anything misaligned cannot stay. It falls away naturally, without noise, without drama, without resistance. That is the power of inner authority. You don't chase peace anymore. You maintain it. You don't fear losing people. You fear losing momentum. You don't cling to comfort. You commit to growth. Because growth gave you your life back. You recognize the cost of staying small. You've paid it before. The exhaustion, the anxiety, the slow erosion of self-worth. You refuse to pay it again, so you hold the line. Even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's lonely, even when the old version of you whispers to give in, you don't. because you know what happens when you do. And you also know what happens when you don't. Strength compounds, peace expands, clarity deepens. You are no longer becoming strong. You are living strong. You are no longer learning. Boundaries. You are the boundary. You are no longer asking for respect. Your life requires it. And from this place forward, nothing that feeds on chaos can follow you. Not because you ran, because you rose. Higher than manipulation, higher than guilt, higher than fear. You built a life where calm is the standard, and anything that cannot honor that standard simply cannot stay. This is who you are now. Focused, grounded, unreachable by anything that threatens your peace. And that is the moment your life finally belongs.